I'm Anderson Hurst. The Seahawks win. Defense bounces back. Let's talk about it on the Seahawks Squad Show.
It's Turbo Seattle. What a great place to be right now in sports.
And I'm Rob Rang, and I'm wearing gold because that's exactly how the Seattle's defensive line dominated this game in golden fashion for the victory.
Hey 12, it's the Seahawks Squad. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
What up, 12s? Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show post-game after a Seahawks 20-12 victory in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. Defense was dominant, as Rob pointed out right off the top. A little bit of a scuffle from the offense, especially in that fourth quarter. But, hey, you'll take a road win any day. And now Mike McDonald is 9-1. Or is that 10-1 now on the road? Yeah. So he continues to get the job done when they're away from home. And this is against a good Jacksonville team. So you'll take the win any way they come. And the Seahawks move to 4-2 on the season. Kind of keep pace with the rest of the NFC West. We'll get your initial thoughts. We'll talk about the defense dominating today. Really disruptive is the word that I come to when I think about what they were able to do. We'll talk about a little bit of the issues in the fourth quarter. You had so many opportunities to put this game away. It should not have come down to the last drive, but it ended up being that way. And we'll talk about the run game. I think a little bit to be desired on that front. Whether it's blocking, whether it's the running backs, whether it's the play calling, we'll kind of break that down. We got Turbo with us. There's no one better to give us the thoughts on that one. So I'm interested to see what he has to say. But first, let's talk about the win. Let's get the good stuff out of the way. This is a Seahawks win at the end of the day. So Turbo, what were your initial thoughts regarding the Seahawks win today? 20-12 over the Jaguars.
Yeah, I just thought that, it was good to see the Seahawks show a good level of resiliency. I can tell you from experience, we always talk about going west to east, but particularly when you go to Florida and it's hot and it's humid and it's kind of like this weather that you're just not used to. If you're watching the game, you can see the guys on the sideline. They have like this shade over the benches, to try to keep the sun. Like that's a real like thing that players are dealing with, and making sure that we're hydrated and that we have the electrolytes. But over the course of 4 quarters, that heat and that humidity can really sort of wear you down. I mean, we're only human beings, okay? Even though, people see us as action figures out there, the reality is we bleed red like everybody else. And so, to overcome that and just kind of find a way to win somewhat of a gritty game when it kind of got ugly in some areas, I thought was really good. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, Rob, what are your initial thoughts on the victory here over the Jaguars?
Well, like Turbo said, I think just the resiliency that Seattle showed in this football game, this is a quality Jacksonville Jaguars squad. Everybody saw the Monday Night Football victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. And then a week earlier, of course, against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a good team. And for Seattle to really control the line of scrimmage, at least on the defensive side of the ball, the 7 sacks in this football game, multiple tackles for loss, basically made Jacksonville pretty one-dimensional. And I thought that Mike McDonald and his defensive staff deserve an awful lot of credit because they were dialing up some fairly exotic blitzes. I think that they had to, try to protect that banged-up secondary that was, again, without Rick Woolen, without Julian Love, and without Devin Witherspoon. And you're going up against the former number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence and 2 dynamic talents, at least at the wide receiver position, in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. I thought that Seattle was going to have to get a little bit creative, and they did so. And I think that was the biggest reason why that they won the football game. That and the continued brilliance that is Sam Darnold in that play action passing game.
Yeah, let's stick on the defensive side of the ball because I think they were the stars of the day for sure. Turbo, what stood out to you? How was Seattle able to disrupt a Jacksonville offense that, as Rob pointed out, has been rather efficient and explosive over the last few weeks? They really, really struggled today.
So last week, when we did our post-game show, we talked about the lack of pressure on the quarterback.
Yep.
And then we talked about, well, DeMarcus Lawrence wasn't playing. Am I missing anybody else on that defensive line?
I think D-Law was the only one from the defensive line that was really missing. So,
and D-Law is a significant, not only piece to the team here in Seattle, but just a player overall when you look at his resume over the course of his career. And I think we pointed out the fact that him not being available, in last week's game was a critical piece in terms of our defensive line not being able to create pressure. Well, guess what? This week he was available, and you saw the difference that it made in terms of just not only getting pressure on the quarterback, but how we were able to do those things. You're moving guys on the line of scrimmage around. I saw one sack from Big Cat. He came off, if you're watching the game, came off the left side of the offensive line, off the edge. I'm like, when did they start putting Big Cat on the edge? But that's the D-Law effect, in my opinion, because now that he's in the game, he can play multiple spots, which allows the versatility to show from other guys playing in multiple spots as well. And so that was really the thing that impressed me the most, was not only the getting pressure on the quarterback, but how they were able to use these guys and their versatility amongst the defensive line to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people overlooked the missing of D-Law in last week against Tampa Bay because he maybe hasn't stood out on the stat sheet, but I think through the first, 3 weeks at that point, 4 weeks, he stood out on the film to a lot of people who would, watch every play and see how much of an effect he really has. Maybe doesn't have the sack totals, obviously. He stood out in the stat sheet today, 2.5 sacks for him, and he stands out on the film. I think you really see how much of a difference this guy makes. And again, it's one of those underrated additions. We've been singing the praises of it here on Locked On Seahawks all year long, heading into the season. Said this guy's a dude. He's still got it at this point in his career. He's excellent in the run game, and he can still get it done rushing the passer. And he showed that today, Rob Rang.
Yeah, he very much did. I mean, he is, as you said, he's a dude. I mean, he is one of the more physical edge rushers in all of the NFL. He can move inside to play some defensive tackle. And then, as Turbo mentioned a moment ago, it just frees up guys like Leonard Williams to kind of wreak havoc. And so I thought that this was, again, a terrific football game from Seattle just coming into the game. I think that they knew that they had to kind of scheme up some things. But then I think they identified as the game went on that right guard was a real position of concern for the Jaguars. They had a number of procedural penalties where the right tackle was basically lining up too far back off the line of scrimmage. I think that all of that is because of the pressure that Seattle was able to create. And Jacksonville was kind of left spinning a little bit. I think it frustrated the heck out of Trevor Lawrence. We saw some, Trevor Lawrence is a guy that, has such a high, he's so well known, of course, national championship victories, number 1 overall pick, et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, he's a guy that if you get a little bit of pressure in his face, he is not as accurate as the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And you saw that in this game. And so, again, even when Jacksonville was able to kind of keep this a football game, it felt like this was Seattle's game in hand. They just couldn't do anything to screw it up. And that was one of the things that Jacksonville has been feasting on. As they mentioned during the broadcast, and this is the Jaguars team that entered this game with 14 turnovers forced. For Seattle to escape this game without turning over the ball at all, to me, that was one of the reasons why Seattle was a little bit, I think, conservative at times in how they attacked Jacksonville's defense. And I think it played right in what Mike McDonald wants this team's identity to be. It's winning with defense, setting the tone on offense, just good quality complementary football in every way.
Yeah, we'll get to the offensive side of the ball because I think that's a great point in terms of maybe people will look at that fourth quarter and be like, why are we so conservative here? There's a chance to kind of go for the jugular, so to speak. But I think that's a great point considering like going into the game, Jacksonville had created the most turnovers in the National Football League. And I think the game plan was pretty clear. Just keep the ball. Don't turn it over. Let the defense win the game. But Turbo, it seemed like both Mike McDonald and the defensive line specifically kind of took that game last week personally. And they responded in a big way this week. They're like, that is not who we are. That's the vibe I got from watching this game today. Is that similar for how you feel as well?
No doubt. It really started from the very first series of the game. And you saw, the defense going to the sideline. Guys were just hyped up. And I'm watching the game like, damn, it was just the first series.
Yeah.
But it was like, yo, we had a little bit of an identity check. And, this week, we want to let people know who we are. It was Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones took his helmet off and he was fired. His first series of the game. He went to the site, took his helmet off, and he's, yelling at people on the sideline. And it's just like, okay, like they want to let people know, like, who they are as a front seven.
Yeah.
The area that was, somewhat concerning just today. And again, I mean, there's missing pieces. There's no Julian Love. There's no Witherspoon. Guys are out. I thought the secondary was a little bit exposed today. It didn't show impactfully because the Jaguars had like 7 drops. Okay. And so they beat themselves a lot, in terms of their own offensive execution and trying to make plays down the field. And to Rob's point, I think that also played into Trevor Lawrence's confidence and the way that he played throughout this game. But I'm not concerned about it whatsoever, just because I know guys are out. You got backups in, and so you're going to get some exposure there.
Yeah, and it just seems like this was you really just had one guy that was out last week that wasn't out today, and that's DeMarcus Lawrence. But it seems like this was a much better game plan. Maybe it was a better matchup as well, now that we kind of look back on it. And like we were kind of saying going into this game, Trevor Lawrence is someone that you can get pressure on, and he's not exactly someone that thrives in that situation versus someone like Baker Mayfield last week. He just has quick decisions he makes. He can just eat you up when you try and do that. So in kind of compensating for the lack of secondary pieces that you have, it seemed like Mike McDonald was dialing up the pressure a little bit today, Rob Ray.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that. I mean, we saw Drake Thomas get himself a sack. I thought Nick Eamon-Warry, the prize rookie, had one of his best games. There was kind of the snafu between, I believe it was he and I think it was maybe Shaq Griffin on the early touchdown reception by Brian Thomas Jr., where it was just, clearly a miscommunication there, just a coverage bust. That's going to happen sometimes, again, when you have as much turnover as Seattle's had in the secondary. And I think that that's why Seattle felt like they had to dial things up at times. But I also think that it's a credit to Seattle staff and to the players, certainly, because while there were occasional mistakes, and to Turbo's point, I think it's an excellent one about the drops by Jacksonville's wide receivers. I mean, this was a winnable football game from Jacksonville's perspective if they just execute the way that they had during their early season, kind of run here. And so that is a little bit concerning for me from a Seattle perspective. But for Seattle to be able to make the plays when they had to, it wasn't just Ernest Jones on that very first drive. He, of course, was the guy who made the play, not just making the tackle, but really setting that firm edge and forcing the action on that 2-point conversion attempt. But right off the bat, I love the fact that you mentioned the opening drive, because the very first snap of the game, Byron Murphy's getting in there and tripping up Trevor Lawrence for a sack. I mean, on first down, to get a sack, talk about kind of stealing back some of the momentum that the Jacksonville Jaguars and that home crowd in Duval were just kind of itching to get back onto the field. I just love the way that Seattle kind of took the game at their opponent, the way that they've said that they were going to do, but in this particular game, they actually did it.
Yeah, and I love that you shouted out 91 there, because I wanted to give him some love here, because I think that was one of the better games I've seen him play in a Seahawk uniform for sure. He made his presence felt on both the running game and got himself. Did he get 2 sacks? I feel like he got 2 today, maybe 1.5, something like that. So yeah, it's great to see. We've been asking for a little bit more production from him. Not saying that he's been playing bad at all, but we want him to just kind of really stick out on film a little bit. And I feel like just on first glance for me today that he definitely did that. Defensive line in general. I mean, Big Cat was everywhere. We already mentioned Tubbs. And then you get Byron Murphy doing what he's doing. And I think that's when this defense starts to become a little bit special. And they did that without, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of pieces in the secondary, Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon among them. So, when you're able to be that dominant, I almost I don't want to say complete dominance because Jacksonville was still able to move the ball. And we talked about the drops a little bit. But you hold a team to 12 points that's been good, really pretty good offense over the past couple of weeks. I think, especially with the pieces that you have out, that's a win. That's a huge win from the defensive side of the ball. There was positives on the other side of the ball, but there also was some negatives as well. I want to talk to these guys, how we sift through all that. What are our feelings, raw reaction for the offense on the other side of the break here on the Seahawks Squad Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. You know the saying, look good, feel good. The problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp, but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's where Mizzen and Main come in. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics. So it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they've perfected it ever since. If you ever have worn Mizzen and Main, you know how good it feels. It's so comfortable, yet you feel so stylish. Usually you have to sacrifice one or the other. If you're throwing sweats and a sweatshirt on, you're comfy, but you feel like a slob and everyone's looking at you like, what's going on here? But if you dress up, you kind of feel stiff. You feel if they don't fit exactly right, there's no give in the pants or in the jacket that you're wearing. Mizzen and Main has none of that. It's you can go from office to dinner, go out on the golf course and still feel comfortable all day. It's the feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. And right now, Mizzen and Main's offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen spelled Mizzen and Main MIMAIN.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main in stores in select states. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from putting projects off, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts for a fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer there. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Welcome back to Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst. I got Robert Turbin and I got Rob Rang with me. Turbo, what happened to the run game, dude? I'm having arguments on Twitter with people about Zach Charbonnet versus Kenneth Walker once again. I hate when I have to do that because that means it's not going well. So what's your evaluation of the running game here? Seahawks win this one 20-2 or 20-12, excuse me. But that wasn't without its kind of negative sides. We talked about the defense. I think Sam Darnold, will get to him in a second, but we need to talk about the running game because there was just nothing going today.
Well, what was the issue? I mean, are we looking at it from a statistical standpoint? Is it because guys are averaging under 4 yards per carry or 4 yards per attempt? And so we look at that and say, oh, the run game didn't do a good job today. The run game's job is to create balance within the offense. You're not always going to get 20-yard runs, 40 and 60-yard runs to the house. Sometimes the whole game is going to be 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And that's just what it's going to be. But what it does is it keeps the defense honest in terms of their eyes and their responsibilities for them to understand, like, hey, if you don't stay disciplined within your gaps, we do got 2 guys who will break one. So you better stay tight. And that's what the run game is really built to do. We got guys who can make big plays, but just because it doesn't happen in one game doesn't mean that there's something all of a sudden wrong with the run game. The run game did its job today. That's how we were able to get 20 points. Would have been 23 if, Jacksonville doesn't commit the penalty at the end.
Right.
And for me, I look at the run game today and I say, you know what? It was sustainable for what the situation caused today in today's game. And that's what we needed from both Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I didn't really see an issue with the run game. The one thing that I did think about though today for the first time was, man, you know, I kind of wish Robbie Oots was out there. I hadn't thought about that since he got injured. But today I did. Today I did, because he just brings a different element. And that's nothing against, what's the kid's name that's replacing him?
Brady Russell.
Brady Russell, yeah.
Nothing against Brady. Nothing against Russell at all. He's a good player, works hard, you know, one of those blue-collar utility guys. You know, but sometimes, you know, when the guy has a special talent, he has a special talent. And Robbie Oots is one of those guys that you just saw early that is like, yo, this is one of those real old school special fullbacks that we have on our team. And we missed him today. You know, we missed him today. So if I can point to one thing, where I can say, man, the run game, I don't think it's about Zach Charbonnet or Ken Walker. I think, man, we're missing Robbie Oots in there. But other than that, I thought the run game was fine.
All right. Turbo talking me off the ledge a little bit in regards to the run game. I like it. Rob, do you have the same evaluation in terms of how it looked today? And that's a good point that Turbo brings up. That's like you're just about winning the game that's in front of you, right? It's not about gaining the most yards. It's not necessarily all the time about efficiency. It's about setting up the rest of the offense. So do you feel like they did that today?
I do. And I know that doesn't make for the most exciting podcast. And they want to have your analysts here arguing with each other. But no, I agree. I think that the game plan was to kind of control the tempo of the football game with your running game. And the reason why A.J. Barner and Jackson Smith and Jigba are so open on those deep balls is because the linebackers and safeties are crowding the line of scrimmage. And, you know, and so it just kind of sets things up for you. So, yeah, I mean, sure. Would I have liked Seattle to be able to break a big run or be able to run the ball right down Jacksonville's throat and get a touchdown? You know, but I love the fact that Turbo just mentioned what Robbie Oots brings to the table. I think I would like to see Seattle take advantage of Brady Russell's hands. I think that's one of the things that he does maybe a little bit better than Robbie Oots does. But again, that's not going to help your running game. That's going to be more as an outlet receiver. But yeah, Robbie Oots' physicality at the point of attack. I like the fact I saw Seattle line up in, you know, traditional I formation, and we're going old school. You know, and so I just like, again, that Seattle doesn't feel like they have to get the statistics to justify running the football. It's all about getting those victories, you know, get those wins. And again, I thought that Seattle was effective running the football, and to do that on the road against a defense that knows that's what you're trying to do, I think that they were good enough. I wouldn't give it an A, but I certainly don't think it's the C or D or F kind of a grade that maybe some fans out there who, again, are probably more concerned about their fantasy football numbers than they are about Seattle's success as far as getting that victory.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And I appreciate the perspective from both of y'all, because I think it's really important to remember what this all means and what we're trying to do here. It's win football games. That's all that matters, right? And if that part there, now there are times where you win football games in spite of some aspects of your game, right? And because you just overcame that. And now that you kind of point that out, you guys are saying that that wasn't the case today. The running game helped the team more than it hurt today. So I think that's a fair evaluation, honestly. And it's worth also pointing out, Rob, you mentioned it just there, Jacksonville's a good run defense. Like they have a couple really good dudes, both in the linebacker position and in that front seven. So I think, you know, we can put it in perspective a little bit as well. And like you said, they kind of knew that that's what Seattle wanted to do. And it doesn't matter if you're able to get the big plays, which they were, then that's what you're trying to do, score points and win games. Right. So that's what the Seahawks ended up doing today in a 20-12 victory over Jacksonville. Let's talk about the passing game because, well, the running game does set up a couple big plays. I just want to ask you guys straight up, is JSN a superstar?
My goodness.
In the
He
making.
certainly feels good. I'll jump in real quick. Just sorry, Turbo, to cut you off there.
Go ahead, please.
But no, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, I got to raise my hand as being a guy that underrated him. Look, I had him as a first-round selection. I had him as the 20th overall player in that particular draft class, and that's exactly where Seattle took him. I should have had him in the top 5 because, my goodness, this guy is getting open against everybody. His footwork, his release off the line of scrimmage, his footwork near the sidelines, just the way he plucks the football. I mean, there was, kind of an uncharacteristic drop in this football game. And obviously we've had a couple of times now where there's been some, after the play is over, kind of extracurricular kind of stuff. I think that's referees calling things a little bit tight. I mean, let the young man celebrate by spinning the football. I don't care where it's at. But at the same time, I just think that we're talking about one of the absolute best receivers in all of the NFL. He's just a pup for the Seahawks. So that's, to me, one of the things that's most exciting about it. The rapport between he and Sam Darnold is every bit as good as what Sam Darnold had with Justin Jefferson a year ago. So again, I did not think that Seattle would be able to be this effective, basically having just one elite receiving option, and Cooper Kupp and Torrey Horton and the tight ends being kind of those, just a complementary threat. JSN is, I think he's obviously statistically setting the NFL on fire. I think he's even better than his statistics would suggest.
Wow. Because the statistics say he's pretty dang good, like, honestly.
Yeah,
so
one of the best in the league.
Yeah, and so Turbo, I think a lot of people going in were kind of concerned about, the departure of DK Metcalf. I think a lot of people just assumed a lot of the reason that JSN was as successful as he was last year was because you had DK Metcalf kind of stretching the field. It's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But now that he's the guy, and especially the way he's doing it, it's not like these dinks and dunks. He's getting explosive plays, which is, I don't think, something that a lot of people associated with his game. Just how good has JSN been in his first 6 games?
I mean, no, he's a superstar on the rise, man. He's certainly a rising star. I'm with Rob, man. I had him as a number 2 receiver at best. I didn't know he's a number 1 wide receiver, man. And he's a number 1 wide receiver because it's every week. Mm-hmm. It's every week. That's how you know. That's how you know. You're almost when a guy has a down game, you're almost surprised. Whoa, he only had 3 catches for 36 yards today. Like, you're shocked at that. Mm-hmm. But he is every bit of a number 1 wide receiver definition. A T.O. or a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, because every week when we go into a game and we watch the Minnesota Vikings or we watch the Cincinnati Bengals or we watch the Cardinals back in the day with Larry Fitzgerald and we think about these number 1 wide receivers, it's like, okay, this guy is going to get off today. Marvin Harrison, And when he doesn't, you're surprised. Oh, man, that never happens. He had a bad game today. That's where Jackson Smith and Jigba is going, right? That's the area he's in now, where whenever he has a bad game sometime this season, because it's going to happen, we're going to all be surprised. Wow, hey, they did a good job bracketing him today or double teaming him today or whatever it was from a defensive game plan. Yep. But he has certainly put himself in that category as a number 1, undoubtedly.
And I'm going to jump right back in there because one thing you said there, Turbo, is that sooner or later there is going to be an NFL team that is going to bracket him. It is going to double cover him. Don't be surprised if that's the game where Seattle's run game suddenly explodes, because it's just all about, chess, basically. It's just numbers. If the defense is going to suddenly focus on stopping Seattle's top receiving threat, and they have to move another body that way, then again, it's just a numbers game. Seattle is going to be able to counter that with either running the football more effectively, or again, that was one of the things I was most excited about was just the way that AJ Barner, for example, has played. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a breakout as a rookie a year ago, but the fact that, as they commented during the telecast, I mean, he is tied for the NFL lead among tight ends with touchdowns, and obviously his big catch and run, basically sealed the game for the Seahawks in this game. I just love that Seattle has found some complementary threats to be able to kind of, I guess, provide some insulation for the superstar that is JSN.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it because they are complimentary. I know Cooper Kupp kind of, I don't want to say breaks out today because he's been good for like 2 or 3 weeks now straight. Gets his first touchdown as a Seahawk, obviously, today. But it's not like you have a T. Higgins and a Jamar Chase. It's not like you don't have 2 number ones like a lot of teams do. And defenses are game planning for JSN. Like he is the guy, and he's still doing what he's doing. That tells you that dude is elite. He's going to be. I think he's already at a top 10, absolutely, possibly even top 5 wide receiver at this point in the NFL, which is crazy to think about. And it's been one of the biggest parts of the offense being as successful as it is at this point in the season. Another part of that, quarterback Sam Darnold. We're going to evaluate his play once again. Just an efficient game from number 14. What more can we say about him? We're going to try to say more about him in the next segment here on the Seahawks Squad Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, I'm going to go right off the top. When the Seattle defense set the tone, we talked about it earlier in the day, moved Jacksonville's defense backwards on the first drive. You saw Ernest Jones get hyped on the sideline, being like, yo, last week is not who we are as a defense. We're setting the tone for who we are for the rest of this game and hopefully for the rest of the season. That is my just the entire first drive defensively against the Jacksonville Jaguars, setting the tone for the entire game, and it ended up being the case. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Robert Turbin, and Rob Rang with me today. We talked about, the running game and JSN being a superstar. We talked about defense earlier on. Let's talk about 1-4. We got to bring him up every single episode because this dude is playing out of his mind right now. I think if you look at the box score, he doesn't really jump off the page, but man, he just continues to operate this offense efficiently. And he does everything that Clint Kubiak asks him to do and more. He makes every throw. He doesn't make mistakes. That's the biggest thing today. I want to kind of bring back something that Rob said in the first segment, that you saw maybe a little bit conservative play calling today because of the kind of reputation of Jacksonville of creating a bunch of turnovers, and that's how they win football games. Seattle didn't turn the ball over once today, and a lot of that has to do with the play of their quarterback, Rob Rang. How good is he right now?
Well, I think that he deserves to be in this MVP conversation. I almost hesitate to say that. To me, it's almost like talking about the Seattle weather. It's like I don't want people across the country thinking that Seattle is beautiful because I don't want all these people come up and clogging our freeways and things like that. But
yeah.
I like the idea.
Freeways are already clogged.
They certainly are.
They add more lanes to the 405. It's over.
Jeez, you're telling me, man.
No, but I think that. With Sam Darnold, I don't think you have to worry about his ego getting out of control. That's one of the things I like about him. I think that he just feels like as low maintenance of a quarterback as you are probably ever going to see in the NFL. I like that about it. He looks like he's just all about the team, and again, just the precision passing. I mean, just how poised he is. That when things do go bad, whether it's his fault or not, he takes the blame for it. And so there's just a million things that I really like about his game, but. As we sat there just a moment ago and we're kind of gushing about JSN, my biggest concern about JSN is that he doesn't have that elite straight line speed for the stopwatch. I don't care about the stopwatch because on the field he's fast, and he's made faster because Sam Darnold is just hitting him in stride on play after play. And the big, the long touchdown that was, his career high. Yep. And I'm remiss in not knowing the number off the top of my head, but I mean, what a strike that was, and just silenced the crowd, and obviously gave Seattle Seattle never was behind after that point in the game. So again, I just think that the combination, Sam Darnold is really, really good. JSN is really, really good. And the combination of two is past really, really good. It's great. And it's, again, one of the biggest reasons why Seattle has put themselves in position to win an NFC West division. I think it's probably the best in football. But again, it's just the fact that there are new players for a lot of Seattle fans out there. I think that's one of the things that makes it so damn exciting.
Yeah, Turbo. I just love, that's a great point about the long touchdown pass. It was got to be something like 60 or 70 yards, I think, at that point.
61.
But yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. But he didn't, JSN didn't stop moving. He was in complete stride the entire time. He just ran right by the guy that was covering him. So, that's a lot on the quarterback. He's throwing him open, so to speak. And I think the way I keep coming back to evaluating Sam Darnold is he just operates this offense exactly the way it's supposed to be. He's not a super off script guy, although he can every once in a while if you absolutely need him to. And I think people, when they hear that, they think, oh, that means he's a system quarterback. And we've talked about this before, where it's like that almost has a derogatory feel to it. The greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, was probably a system quarterback too. He just operated the offense in front of him. And that's what you need to do to win football games. So just talk about Sam Darnold and how he's impressed you, or what you're seeing from him that's made him so successful at this point in the season.
Well, he's continuing to climb the ladder in terms of, better quarterbacks in the NFL right now. That throw that he hit to JSN today for the touchdown across the middle, a couple weeks ago, that same throw to A.J. Brown from Jalen Hurts was an overthrow.
Mm-hmm.
There was an overthrow by, Jalen Hurts in the game last week to Devontae Smith, wide open overthrow.
You're not pointing out that Jalen Hurts is bad. That's a Super Bowl champion. But you're saying 100%. That Sam Darnold is playing as good or even better than a Super Bowl champion at this point.
Exactly. I'm just explaining the reasons why he's continuing to climb the ladder in terms of, being in that, top 10, top 12 conversation in terms of quarterbacks right now in the NFL. If you feel that he's an MVP candidate, I think there's some legitimacy in that. I personally wouldn't put him in that category as of right now. But the thing that I love most about Sam Darnold and the way that he's playing, and Rob mentioned it, it's his poise. It's really he's just I like a chill guy. He's just mellow. Man, Elijah Arroyo across the middle.
Slips.
Sam Darnold throws a dime, he slips. And Sam Darnold goes over there hey, man, don't even trip. It's cool.
Literally, don't even trip.
Yeah, right. We'll get the next one, and on the next series, he hits him for a small gain or whatever, So it's just I've played with quarterbacks who might not look your way the rest of the game. Yep. Hall of Famers. We've, there's stories about Manning, hey, that's it, especially if you're not a main guy. And Sam, Sam is not like that. And I think that's one of the key reasons why this offense continues to ascend and find ways to make the plays when they need it. The offense wasn't clean today, but when they needed a big play from JSN, he was there. When they needed a big play from A.J. Barner in the fourth quarter to ice the game, he was there. Yeah. That's in large part of Sam Darnold's leadership style.
Yeah, and I love that last two words that you use, leadership style. And a lot of people just look at the arm talent or the mobility and the physical tools of quarterbacks, Rob Rang. But a lot of what makes Sam Darnold as good as he is he makes the people around him better, not just because of how good of a quarterback he is, but because of how good of a leader he is.
Yeah, at this point, I wish that the two of you were calling that football game rather than the gentlemen who were, because to recognize the leadership style, as you said, with Elijah Arroyo with that slip, and you see Sam Darnold kind of put his arm around the rookie tight end who was, again, a guy who struggled with injuries over his college career at Miami. That's an easy kind of a play for a rookie to kind of, get in his head a little bit, and instead to go right back to him. Again, I just think that shows just the maturity, the kind of the calm that is Sam Darnold, that I think is, again, I'm a big fan of Geno Smith's arm talent. I wasn't a big fan of his leadership style. And that's one of the things I think that Sam Darnold really is just such a dramatic difference. And, it remains to be seen with, of course, what's going to happen with these quarterbacks. But again, I think at the quarterback position, that leadership, that poise is just so important. It's that undefinable it factor that certain quarterbacks have that. And, again, who knows if Sam Darnold's ever going to take Seattle back to the promised land to win a Super Bowl. But I think that he has the intangibles of a quarterback that can do exactly that.
And which one of you guys mentioned the ego thing?
It was Rob.
Sorry.
I thought that was a great point, especially when you bring up Geno. I'm not saying that Geno has a big ego. He's a great dude and everything like that. But you did get a sense that his leadership style changed a little bit. Once he started to have a little bit of success. And I don't think that's something you have to necessarily concern yourself with Sam Darnold. So I agree with you there, Rob.
Yeah, and I'll throw in the other guy that departed, DK Metcalf. Now, rightly or wrongly, he got kind of thrown into this category of a guy that was too emotional on the field, would whine and pout. I'm not saying that these allegations are correct or anything, but there's no sense of that with JSN. I know he gets flagged for the penalty today, but again, he's celebrating a play that he made. He spun the ball that happens to have a guy in front of him. I'm not any sort of worried about that. So when you kind of, and again, I was a big Geno and I was a huge DK fan before these guys left, and I was a little worried in terms of the actual talent going out the door. But it seems like just in terms of the camaraderie, the personality, the leadership, everything that you want, and your big dudes kind of leading your team forward, the Seahawks seem to have upgraded in a way with what they have in Sam Darnold and JSN stepping up and to be a star wide receiver in this league. So I think, is it too early to say that the Seahawks made the right moves? I think we could say this at this point in the season. I want to ask you guys, is it too early to say that the Seahawks made the right move in getting rid of Geno Smith and upgrading to Sam Darnold?
No, I it's too late. I said that.
It was like too late to get on the bandwagon. Nope.
Yeah. No, I was saying that when it happened, I just felt like it was for DK. I thought it was one of those mutual things.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I think it's best for Seattle to part ways. Yeah, I think it's better for DK to go elsewhere.
And he's playing well in Pittsburgh, so I'm not even like, yeah,
no doubt. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like this negative,
right?
Thing just because you part ways,
right?
And then I felt the same way about Geno, because Geno, I think what Geno did was, sort of put Seattle in position to, I guess, still be in the conversation.
Yeah.
In terms of the NFC West and like being this wild card team. But when it came to actually getting it done, that part wasn't happening. So you have to, you got to transition. It's time to transition. Plus, he's 35. Mm-hmm. So it's like, man, it was time for a transition. And so, hey, let's go ahead and take the risk. Let's go get Sam Darnold, who's 28, coming off the best season of his career, coming off a year before that where he was around winning a lot, etc., and take the chance. And if it's a lateral move, okay, I'll do my job as GM and figure out what's coming in the draft or whatever. But there's an opportunity where it could be a move that takes us up a notch. And right now, that's what it seems to be doing.
Yeah, Rob, I'm going to go talk about the wide receiver side of things there. Do you think that, and we saw with DK on the team last year, JSN take a step up from his rookie year. So this ascension that he is on could still happen if DK was still on this team. Do you think he is as well regarded as he is now and taking this next step if DK is still on this team?
I don't think statistically, no. I think that that the offense, that the passing game is basically just running through JSN at this point. So I don't think that he would have as many receptions. I don't think that he'd have as many receiving yards or touchdowns. And look, DK Metcalf is just the most physically gifted wide receiver that's ever wore the Seattle uniform. At the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that he was a better wide receiver. He
Right.
just is so physically gifted. And JSN is just playing at such an exceptional level. I do want to see him trying to cut down on some of these silly off the, after the snap or after the play is over kind of penalties. I don't want that to become a recurrent issue here. But at the same time, just his ability to get open when you need him to get open, the consistency that Turbo talked about, game in and game out, we just never saw that with DK Metcalf. I mean, there has been no receiver that I've ever seen for the Seahawks that's ever had that wow type of ability. I mean, maybe Joey Galloway back in the day for the fans out there who are 40 plus years old listening to us, but for otherwise, I just don't know of a player that had that type of, again, just drop your jaw. Oh my goodness, what did I just see? But at the same time, I want a team that's going to win football games, not just be highlight reel heroes. And that's where I think that, similar to the quarterback position, what we just talked about with Geno Smith and Sam Darnold being an upgrade, I think the JSN is an upgrade over DK Metcalf in that way as well.
Totally. Well, I want to talk about one maybe negative thing. We already talked about how maybe I was wrong about thinking about the run game the way that I did. I want to know if you guys think the same way that I did about the fourth quarter in general. It gave me a lot of vibes of the Arizona game where you had the game won and then you kind of just let the team back into it here in the fourth quarter. I'm curious if you guys are in the same boat as me, or if you're thinking, hey, they're playing conservative. They don't want to give the ball away. They know they trust their defense to get the job done at the end of the day. So I'm curious what you guys think. I'll get Turbo and Rob's thoughts on that on the other side of the break here on the Seahawks Squad Show. We will be right back. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's an awesome steal of a deal. And you can use it in FanDuel's app, which is my favorite betting app of all of the options because how easy it is to track all your bets, whether if you're a live bettor, if you're an over-under guy, if you're a futures guy, if you're a prop bet guy, or woman, however you like to get action on the game, FanDuel makes it possible with the best app on the market. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the deep stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Turbo, and Rob Rang with you today. So the Seahawks win this one 20-12. Pretty dominant showing, especially from the defense through the first three quarters. But the fourth quarter, again, it seems like this reminded me of the Thursday night game against Arizona where you had the game in the bag. Everything seemed to be going the way of the Seahawks, almost like a blowout was imminent. But you kind of let Jacksonville back in the game. They get the touchdown, make it a one-score game, and you just need the offense to get some sort of points, and they're unable to do so on two straight drives. Of course, leading into the third drive where you could have had the field goal, the last one, I should say. But the penalty keeps Seattle the ball. So I kind of taken that drive out of it because it was basically over at that point anyway. But do you guys feel the same way as I do about the fourth quarter where it was like, okay, we had the chance to put them away. And I think if we're playing against possibly a better offense, a better team, that we're going to kind of rue the day in this opportunity. Turbo, I'll start with you.
Yeah, this is where I think the run game gets a little highlighted because the fourth quarter, especially when you have the lead, this is when, you should be able to turn around, hand the ball off, offensive line dominating the front, and, be able to wear down the defense in the fourth quarter. Now, I did talk about earlier how, going west to east, especially Florida, in that humidity, I'm telling you guys, 2 years in a row, we went to Miami, played the Dolphins.
Yep.
I can't even remember who the Dolphins had at quarterback. That's how trash the team was. Dolphins.
It's probably Fitzpatrick or something like that. Yeah.
It might have been, but they beat us both times.
Yeah.
It's just like, how did Miami beat us? It was hot. It was just, man. So I could see how maybe, you don't have quite the energy in the fourth quarter. But one of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of how the Seahawks have been utilizing Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And I'm starting to think this, and I'm curious to what you feel about this, Rob. I'm starting to feel like, okay, I like K9 as a starter, no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
And you utilize him however you want to throughout the game. But I think fourth quarter is Zach Charbonnet time. Just because he's more physical at the point of attack. He's more straight line and downhill. And when you have the lead in the fourth quarter and you want to keep teams from coming back in the game, like the Cardinals, like today with a little bit of a scare, man, you got to have that physical threat, man, that's really throwing those body blows where guys just don't feel like tackling anymore in the fourth quarter. And so that was really the part when, in terms of the run game. Overall, I thought it was fine, but in the fourth quarter, you really want to see that offensive line and that run game dominate when you have the lead.
Rob, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that makes Zach Charbonnet, such a different player than Kenneth Walker III is that leg drive, that determination. I mean, it just feels like that Kenneth Walker can make 1, 2, 3 people miss, but I don't see him often enough make carry guys extra yards. And that's one of the things I think that Zach Charbonnet does a really nice job of. I think that he can be more decisive. And then again, just be, just get to the point where he is going to just, bury his shoulder into the defender, right through his chest if he has to. Mike McDonald often talks about, going through things rather than around things, kind of a thing. And again, that's one of the things that Zach Charbonnet does a great job of. And I'd love to have Seattle kind of adopt that mentality in the fourth quarter. And so if that just is as simple as just kind of focusing in on Zach Charbonnet in the fourth quarter, I'm all for it. I think that he runs with that kind of a punishing style. It actually reminds me, way back in the day, again, I mentioned the Joey Galloway reference here, so I'm going to use an Eddie George reference here for a minute. There was an old Eddie George Gatorade commercial where they basically showed him and he is, he's lining up in the backfield and he gets this smile on his face and he's like looking at the defensive players and he goes, they're getting tired. And that's kind of the mentality I'd like to see Seattle's offensive line, running backs, and the play caller as well, to kind of get that mentality of just driving the ball down their opponent's throat. But I do think it's an important point that Turbo has made a couple of times here about the temperature and the humidity of where you're playing. It's easy to say here in the comfort of my own home. To actually do that on the opponent's field, I think is a very difficult task. So I thought that again, I'd love to see Seattle adopt more of that philosophy. I also think that Kubiak, as the play caller, deserves an awful lot of credit for having the courage to call the play action pass to A.J. Barner when everybody knows that they're going to try to stop, or that Seattle's going to try to run the football. And again, just try to play a little bit of chess here, and take advantage of that defense getting sucked up.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a second. Not that I disagree with you guys on the weather and the difficulty of going down to the Florida heat, so to speak. But if someone were thinking the other way, Turbo, provide some context on this. It's that way for the defense too. So is it one of those situations where they're more prepared for it because they practice in it and they live in it all the time?
Yeah, 100%. No doubt. It's like, I went to school at Utah State, so there's a certain level of, you're in the mountains, right? You have to deal with some of that thin air. I'll never forget my first conditioning session was horrible in Utah, after a year, it felt like it was easy. And then when we had to play in California, it was like, these guys are out of shape. It's like, no, you're practicing and playing at altitude every day. Yeah. It's a difference, I go to Utah now in the winter and my skin wants to break off.
Yeah.
When I lived there, I'd walk around in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Because I was used to it. Yeah. So it does make a significant difference. They're used to it. Those guys in Jacksonville, they're in it every single day. Right. And it's just it's just new elements. We played in Miami. Couple plays, like 2 plays, a little swing route, little scat route out of the backfield, and I'm like, I don't even understand why I'm breathing so hard. I'm like, I was supposed to be in shape. I got to take the water bottle and squirt it all over. Like I'm I'm like, yo, this. So it's a real, those elements, man. When you got to go to altitude, I know it's like a conversation. People are like, yo, man, those things really make a difference. They really do.
Rob, I kind of jumped around the board here, but we got a couple minutes left. So I wanted to get your thoughts because I think a lot of people look at the play calling. So I want you to evaluate Clint Kubiak's game today because a lot of people look at the struggles in the fourth quarter. We talked about the running game and their just results in terms of the statistics. Don't jump off the page necessarily. You still scored 20 points. Really would have been 23 if you had taken that field goal, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious how you would evaluate Clint Kubiak's play calling today, because I've seen a mixture of opinions both online and within friend groups and stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was good. There were times I thought that a little bit stubborn with like the kind of a 3 receiver look rather than the 2 tight end and running the ball early in the fourth quarter. I thought that kind of took away from some of the things that I thought that Seattle would want to have a little bit more of a finishing mentality. But again, when you have a quarterback who's playing as well as Sam Darnold is, and we kind of acknowledge the 7 sacks that the Seahawks got. I mean, to only allow 1 sack, and that 1 sack was when Jacksonville basically overloaded and blitzed. Then I thought that Seattle's offensive line was doing a pretty good job. So I was surprised by the willingness to throw the ball at times 2, 3, 4 times in a row. But at the same time, again, the results are all that matter. And when he needed to do that play action pass, I think that was one of the reasons why the safety, I believe it was Andrew Wingard, was in such a poor position because he was sneaking down to try and stop the run. And then again, just having the faith in Sam Darnold, who I think is just playing an exceptional level, better than any element of your running game. I think you're basically just kind of pushing the chips into the table, so to speak, that your quarterback is going to be able to lead the team to victory.
Yeah, and Turbo, I think one thing that Rob mentions there, and I want to make sure to give these guys a shout out as well, the fact that we haven't talked about the O-line this entire episode, I think is a good thing. Right? So I want, is it more that, obviously they have been much improved from last year, hopefully, because they were pretty bad last year. So it's hard to be worse than what they were. But how much of that do you give the actual players and their execution and the upgrade with Gray Zabel is kind of really the only name that's different versus maybe Clint Kubiak making it a little easier on his offensive line with the play calling and a little extra protection here and there, multiple tight end sets, so on and so forth. So how would you kind of divvy up the credit, so to speak, of the effectiveness of the offensive line?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of both, because I think a good example is how we've talked about the run game today. And although it, from a statistical standpoint, may have seemed ineffective, they didn't veer away from it. Right. That helps offensive line. Put my hand in the dirt and get off on somebody. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having to retreat all the time and abandon the run game because we feel like it's not working. So, and then the other piece to it, and probably the most important piece to it, is something that you just said, Anders. You said, well, Gray Zabel is really the only new piece. Mm-hmm. So what is that saying? Well, we've been healthy. That's what that's saying. Yep. And we've had the same 5. Mm-hmm. Which means a lot. Game to game to game, we got our 5. Yeah, we hit the field and we got our 5. And so the synergy now that is being created when not Abe's out of the lineup, or Cross is out of the lineup here, or we got this guy out of the lineup there today. There hasn't been a whole lot of that. There was some early, but over the last few weeks we have had some synergy, some consistency. We figured out who we want at right guard. And we're just leaving them in there, and it's just like, boom, they're creating this continuity. And I think that's really been the difference.
And Rob, is against a good D line. Jacksonville has proven to be disruptive for a lot of really good offenses. But like you said, just the 1 sack today on an all-out blitz, basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Jacksonville, Eric Armstead, Davon Hamilton, I mean, those are 2 big, strong guys that they definitely had their moments. But as Turbo mentioned, just the continuity along Seattle's offensive line. When Abraham Lucas went down a year ago, I mean, it just turned I thought, a pretty solid offensive line, just in terms of raw talent, into one of the, frankly, laughing stocks in all of the NFL. So I think that certainly the coaches, John Benton, Rick Dennison, offensive coordinator player, Clint Kubiak, they deserve a ton of credit. But there's no question about Seattle's talent, the work ethic, and the synergy. I think it's a great word. The synergy has been created by the continuity of this offensive line has again been one of the real underrated elements of Seattle's success so far.
Yeah, wanted to make sure we give the big guys some love because we talk about the offense, being successful in all these ways, and like we talk about the explosiveness of Sam Darnold getting to JSN. Guys got to have time to throw for that to happen. So kudos to the offensive line. Hopefully they can continue doing that. 20-12 Seahawks victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 6, moved to 4-2 on the season against a good Jacksonville team too that just beat the Chiefs last week. The Seahawks come home next week, I believe. Yes,
Monday
against the
football.
Texans on Monday Night Football. Texans kind of sputtering a little bit, so hopefully this isn't an overlook game for the Seahawks. I think they get things right on the road. We'll have kind of preview episodes. We'll break down more of this game with Locked On Seahawks. You'll find stuff from Corbin and Rob a little later on. We will kind of look out for another Squad Show episode later this week, looking ahead to the Houston Texans and what that brings in a big matchup against CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. So once again, Seahawks win 20-12, 4-2 on the season. Continue to keep pace in a very, very good NFC West division. So let's hope that continues here. Go Hawks. Appreciate all y'all. Turbo, Rob Rank, thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys a little bit later this week. Have a good day, and go Mariners as well.